For a great cup of joe, there's one thing you should know. Your morning brew can also be playful. Buff Boy Brewing guys make the temperature rise, and you surely feel naughty when you swallow our coffee. If you want some real heat, give your mouth a fine treat. You will want some more, rest assured. Buff Boy Brewing, you can't get enough of.
It's time for The Scribble, your weekly fix of celebrity chats, bizarre stories in the news, and basic random chatter with best-selling author and syndicated radio host Jeremy Bradley. Make sure your seat is in the upright and locked position and your barf bag is securely in place. Here's Jeremy Bradley.
Happy Friday, everybody. Jeremy Bradley here. This is The Scribble. TGIF. Do they still say that? Do you remember that back in the day? That was like Step by Step and Family Matters, and I don't remember any of the other shows. It wasn't Full House, was it? No, I don't remember any other shows. Perfect Strangers, I think, back in the day, wasn't it? Oh, I feel so old. Thank you for tuning in to The Scribble at thescribbleshow.com and on SoundCloud and iTunes. Speaking of television, it sweeps right now, and if you know anything about television, you know this is ratings time, so there's going to be some TV season finales coming up. And you know, this is the networks pull out the big guns. This is when it's ratings time. The advertising dollars are in full force. One of the most expensive times to advertise on television, of course, with the Super Bowl here as well. We know that's a biggie. And so we are talking with the two finalists from Hell's Kitchen coming up in just a little bit. Now, again, if you realize it's H and K are their first names, right? Isn't that crazy? HK for Hell's Kitchen. And we'll talk with the two finalists coming up in just a little bit. Next week on the show, I believe we have Matt Eisman. You know him from Celebrity Apprentice and American Ninja Warrior. He's competing with other celebrities. And as he says, celebrities in quotation marks is what he thought at the beginning. But we're going to talk with him about competing for a job with Arnold Schwarzenegger. Now, if you follow Celebrity Apprentice, you know that it's just a pretend job and it really doesn't mean anything. But they are raising a lot of money for charity, and that really does go a long way. That's the point of it. You want to get, you know, that charitable effort in there, and so they've been taking over since Donald Trump was, NBC told him you're fired, right? You remember that last year or a year and a half ago? And then what happened with Trump, hey? He didn't need NBC. He's now ruling the United States of America, which is still kind of funny to a lot of us Canadians, I must say. So we've got a jam-packed show with the two finalists from Hell's Kitchen coming up, and if there's anything you'd like to have us do on the show in terms of celebrity interviews or guests or things like that, would love to hear from you. Send an email. live@jbonair.com is the email address, live@jbonair.com, and we're on the Twitter at The Scribble Show, at The Scribble Show on Twitter. I'm going to talk your ear off a little bit more right after this.
Airfares go up and down more than planes themselves. Pricearazzi.travel has you covered when flight prices change on Expedia.com. If the prices drop, you'll be sure to know about it. There's already so much to remember when you travel, and you shouldn't have to worry about paying more than you needed to on your flights. Let Pricearazzi.travel keep an eye on that for you. Your biggest concern should be if you've packed enough money to buy all the trinkets you really don't need, or if your swimsuit shows off enough skin in all the right places, or that while you are away, the kids have enough food in the kennel and that the dogs get to school on time. Wait, flip those last two. Simply register your email address with Pricearazzi.travel and then book your flights on Expedia.com. Your itineraries are automatically sent to Pricearazzi, and you could do your happy dance if the flight becomes cheaper in 24 hours. Better yet, you could actually end up flying for free. And who doesn't love free, right? Find out how to save on your Expedia flights at Pricearazzi.travel. Avoid bank account turbulence and sign up now at Pricearazzi.travel.
Pricearazzi.travel. I gotta tell you, when it comes to traveling, it is so incredibly expensive sometimes now that the airlines are just like nickel and diming you for everything. You want to check a bag, you want to do this. But back in the day, you used to get like a full-on meal and drinks and everything when you fly. And now, if you just want to take a bag, I would just like to take some of my personal belongings on my trip. $25. Really? Really? And the worst part then is if you do, I think they call it code sharing. So if I fly United one way and then I've got a connecting flight with another airline, you don't have to pay another $25, do you? Or is it like, that's how I've always just wanted. And then on the way back, and there's times when I forget that I have it, and I don't necessarily go to the airport with money to spend there, right? Like if you're going to a different country or something and you might take cash, it's for spending money while you're there. And I just don't think about it. I'm worried about, okay, well, I've got cash for the taxi and, all these other things. And then you get to the airport and you're like, oh, crap, that's right. I've got to pay, $600 just to ship my underwear and a pair of shoes because I've got my carry-on bag that has a laptop and everything in it, and I don't want my unmentionables ripped out at security and flashed everywhere, which I guess is no problem because they've got no issue feeling you up and finger probing you if they want to search you at security. It's getting warm in here, isn't it? Let's move on. I mentioned at the top of the show that the Hell's Kitchen finalists, Heather Williams and Kim Ryan, are both competing for a job with Gordon Ramsay at his restaurant, and there's something that's really interesting about these shows is I enjoy watching them, let me just preface it with that, but the incredible amount of food that they waste, and maybe they do end up maybe they do take the dishes and the meals to shelters and things like that and give them to people, but they throw out so much food, and even during these competitions, you look at a pantry that they have or wherever they go into the storage room, and it's just like the freshest ingredients possible, which is great because a restaurant should have that. But this is a TV restaurant. And that's where I feel bad. I do have a bit of guilt, and it's not even me wasting the food when, they take for granted, I think. And so I do hope, even though we do love Hell's Kitchen on Fox, I do hope, producers of the show or somebody involved, does end up using those, fruits and vegetables and just everything else for good after, not just entertainment, because there's a lot of people that are hungry in the world and could definitely use that. And right in your own backyard sometimes as well. So just my little public service announcement there. I think we've just lost our relationship with Fox now that we've criticized them wasting food. But I mean, it's a whole bunch of those shows. I'm not just saying Hell's Kitchen, because there's different cooking competition shows and there's everything. Most of them are with Gordon Ramsay, though. I just realized sometimes you just need to stop and think before you talk. No, but I enjoy watching the shows. I'm not knocking them at all. But, should I talk about Donald Trump or reference Trump? No, I think he does enough of that for himself, doesn't he? He does. He gets the biggest audiences everywhere, and he gets the most votes that aren't illegal, is what we take away from that. I was watching the ABC special, was it Wednesday night, with David Moore, David from ABC News. And it's interesting to read the transcripts of an interview with Trump, because if you're watching him at a press conference or at an event or whatever it is, you can follow him because you're listening to him and you're distracted because he's conducting an orchestra with his hands all the time. And when you read a transcript, like when he met with the newspaper editors or the newspaper staff at the New York Times, it's very interesting, if you're not hearing him, to read what he's saying, because he's forming a sentence. And they're a great sentence, and they're a wonderful sentence, and it's a tremendous sentence. And then he sometimes gets back to his point, but he can actually trail off onto three tremendously different, three amazingly different, you see what I'm doing there, right? And it's quite comical. So I can only imagine the people who have closed captioning on their television, like when they have to read, the hearing impaired, to watch or to read what he's saying. And you almost just think I've got to rewind. Did I miss a sentence? Because it sounds like he started one thought and then the sentence ends with a completely different thought after that. Now, I don't want to get into the whole Trump thing because, last week on the show, we had one of those Trump voters, and I was getting some emails about people, or from people who were saying that I'm just a Trump hater. And like I stated during that show, when we talked about it for the 30 minutes because it was inauguration night, but I have no interest in Clinton or Trump or anything like that. I'm Canadian. It does affect my country to a point. But I wasn't tuned into the election really for any sort of policy or anything like that, just because I didn't vote. And, I say this, that it didn't matter to me in a sense of that it doesn't impact my daily life so much as it does a U.S. citizen or somebody living in the United States. And so for me, it's interesting to see these social media posts because I will tweet and make fun of, anybody. I make fun of myself. I make fun of celebrities. That's what I do. And as we see now with SNL, when the writer commented on Barron Trump and she was suspended, which means fired basically in television. But people were like lashing out at me on Twitter and saying that I'm just a disgruntled Hillary supporter and whatever. And then I just write back like, I'm Canadian, doesn't matter. And then they just lash out at Canada and it's being taken over by, it wasn't Muslims, immigrants, let's say. And I just think there's so much rage. And I mentioned this on the show last week when we had Josh, one of the guys on Twitter who is a Trump supporter. I don't get it. I don't get it. It's a joke. It's meant to be fun. It's not meant to hurt feelings. You're supposed to have a laugh. But as we see under the administration, Trump doesn't have a sense of humor about things like SNL skits or anything like that. So is that where we're going to in this world? I don't know. I'm not sure. Very 1984. So let's swing back, though. We are going to talk with the Hell's Kitchen finalists. First up is Heather Williams, and then Kim Ryan is on deck right after this.
Ever had something to get off your chest but never had the balls to say it? That's a load of crap. Speak Free with JB.com is exactly what you've been waiting for. Your chance to tell it like it is and not care what anybody else thinks. Have your say on issues of the day. Join newspaper and radio columnist Jeremy Bradley as he tells it like it is. Hundreds of thousands of people have stopped by, including some well-known celebrities who have had a chat with JB and speak candidly about what's really going on in the world. You can join them too. Have a rant or a rave. Be brave and head on over to www.speakfreewithjb.com now.
It is down to the final two on Hell's Kitchen, and I just realized that the first names of the finalists are H and K. Is that weird or what? Heather Williams is joining us on the line. Hi, Heather.
Hi.
And also, the two finalists also somewhat have like boys' names for a last name, too.
Yeah, it's kind of funny.
But it's the women who ruled the kitchen, I just gotta say, right?
Oh, exactly. We knew that from day one. The guys were self-destructing, so it actually helped us in the long run.
Okay, let's talk about that, though. Do you think it's a good idea at the beginning, like, pairing the genders together and then against each other? Or should it be more about, like, knowledge and experience? Like, how should the teams be formed, do you think?
I actually agree with the whole gender separation, just because women can be very catty and they can be very... I don't know, like, we have dominant personalities, and there's a lot of dominant people in our kitchen on the red side, but the males on the blue side, everybody needed to be the alpha male, so
Yeah.
It ended up, like, poisoning their team more than helping. So it's kind of interesting to watch when you have a bunch of women who have the same type of personalities, but we were more mature about it, and we could work together and actually dominate, like, dinner services.
You sure did. And see, I always figured that it was like Donald Trump behind it, the separation, but no, I'm just kidding. Let's talk about your experience and your history. So you're a sous chef and your signature dish, and I don't want to say this because I'm hungry, but ribeye and then Brussels. Actually, you tell us about. I'll just listen. Go ahead.
I did a pan-seared dry-aged ribeye with a Hasselback potato and roasted Brussels sprouts.
Oh.
I made a balsamic glaze to go over top of them. And as I'm making my signature dish, Chef Andy comes over and she was like, Gordon really hates Brussels sprouts. And I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, he's going to hate me when I get my dish up there. I'm like, what am I going to do? But it actually worked out really well for me, and I got a 5 out of 5.
Well, I've got to ask, though. I mean, there's got to be some foods that he just doesn't like, but I guess he maybe likes them or can appreciate them anyway. So that's what wins him over.
Well, Brussels sprouts are a big one, and I found that out the hard way.
Do you, like, when you go on the show, though, like, do you maybe research what he likes and what his specialties are? Like, what did you do to prepare?
I just did what I knew I was good at, because I knew if I looked into it any more than I really already knew of the show, I would kind of psych myself out. So I wouldn't watch Hell's Kitchen until, like, when I knew I was going on, I would not watch the current season. I would not watch anything going on, because I didn't want to get myself, like, overwhelmed and expect things, and it turned out to be different.
Right.
So I'm just like, no, screw this. I'm turning the TV off, and I'm just going to do my own thing.
Well, we've got to talk about Gordon, though. So obviously you had heard or seen him. You knew all about him. What was your first impression?
Oh, yeah, no.
Or actually, let me ask this then. What did you think before meeting him, and then what did you think after meeting him? Was it the same? Was that what you expected?
Before meeting him, when my mother had actually told me she signed me up for Hell's Kitchen, I'm like, listen, this guy is psychotic. He is going to scream at me, and I'm probably going to throw something at him, and I'm going to get booted off because I got violent. Like, I can't picture myself being screamed at that way. And then when I got there, like, you have the whole intimidation aspect of it,
Yeah.
but when you actually got to talk to him and when he would come over and just ask you what you're making and what you're doing and just give you some kind of feedback, I'm like, oh, it's amazing. And then, you know, the intimidation kind of subsided and I didn't have to worry about it as much.
You talk about the feedback. Is there maybe like one tip or technique that he taught you, and maybe even at first you thought, you know what, I know what I'm doing, thanks Gordon, but then realized he's right? Or is there just something that maybe you hadn't thought of that he told you and now you still use it today?
You know, like when Gordon would come into the kitchen, you know, everybody was kind of like, oh no, he's going to scream at us. But it was actually, whenever he came in, he would try to show us like a faster way to do things. And when we would do scallops over on seafood, we would always use like a fish spatula or something, you know, very thin to get underneath them. And he came over with one of the tasting spoons that he uses. And they actually worked out 10 times better because it kind of slides underneath the scallop and you go with the curve of the pan. So it went so much faster than trying to fight it with a fish spatula and then flip it over. And I burned my hands, you know, a few dozen times less.
Of course. Okay, so I've got to flip this around. Is there anything that you taught him?
I don't know if I taught him anything, but one thing that sticks with me is he said he was very impressed with my self-confidence, and I kind of chuckled at him because it said, I second-guess myself, and I'm my own worst enemy.
Of course.
But I promised myself and my son that I wasn't going to do that when I went out there, and it's worked very, very well for me.
And, you know, seeing your family, that's but maybe halfway, 3/4 of the way through the competition, the family members and loved ones come out. That looks like it really motivates you and just pushes you even further.
Oh, without a doubt. When I saw my son, you know, it was very emotional, but it also gave me the fire that I needed back into my body because, you know, I do everything that I can for him. And it's, you know, me and him against the world. So when I got to see him, you know, yeah, I had like my whole crying moment, and, you know, I still cry watching that episode. And he was my determination. And as soon as I got to, you know, see him go back into the black jacket, you know, competition, I was like, oh, yeah, without a doubt, I'm going to be the first one in that black jacket lounge. And I was.
Okay, so speaking of competition, who would you say, and maybe it's Kim, I don't know, who would you say was your toughest competition on the show this season?
The toughest competition this season, I believe Heidi. You know, she's a very strong-willed person, and she's very domineering, and just the way that she would carry herself in the kitchen, and I've always called it since day one. I was like, you know, it's going to come down to Heidi and myself. We always called ourselves like the Double H threat the entire season. And I'm so sad that they didn't catch any of that in the confessional for any of us to hear. But her and I always said that it would always come down to me and her, and that we were our biggest competitions for each other.
Right, but it wouldn't have worked out with the whole HH thing. It's HK, right? So it's fate.
Yeah. So now they had to change it to HK, and that's okay, because, you know, Ryan can throw down, and she's pretty badass in the kitchen, so
Yeah.
I might have underestimated her a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I know you have a lot on your plate. See what I did there? Do you like that? That was good, hey?
Yeah, look at you.
Well, I know you're. I should tell everybody you're at your restaurant right now. So I'm going to let you get back to work, and we wish you the best. Heather Williams from Hell's Kitchen. Thanks so much for joining us today.
It's never too early to start thinking about your next holiday. Have you checked out Mexico recently? From tequila tasting, swimming with horses, to ziplining through the jungle and watching whales and dolphins in their natural habitat, Puerto Vallarta has it all. Visit mexico.jbonair.com to see all the fun PV has to offer. That's at mexico.jbonair.com for hundreds of photos, interviews, and videos from around the tourist hotspot. Check out mexico.jbonair.com for all the fun. That's mexico.jbonair.com.
Isn't it crazy that you wait for payday, but before you know it, you're strapped for cash again? It's time to stop blowing your money and become a smart spender with the book, The Official Guide to Being an American Cheapskate at cheapskatebook.com. Learn simple ways to cut costs at home every day and during special times of the year. Don't go broke at Christmas. Don't remortgage the house for a fancy vacation. The book is filled with tips to save you money throughout the year. Check out the best-selling book, The Official Guide to Being an American Cheapskate at cheapskatebook.com or on Amazon and iTunes.
Who are the Kardashians feuding with now? What did that little thug Justin Bieber do this time? Who's getting hitched? And who's headed for Splitsville? Hear the latest celebrity news and gossip every day on Entertainment Wrap-Up. The good, the bad, the ugly, but mostly the ridiculously hilarious. It's all recapped in this daily segment at entertainmentwrapup.com. Have a laugh at the expense of the rich and famous when they take themselves way too seriously. It's 3 minutes of time-wasting fun at entertainmentwrapup.com. Check out Entertainment Wrap-Up at entertainmentwrapup.com. Brought to you by Speak Free Books.
Kim Ryan, the other Hell's Kitchen finalist, joining us on the line. Now, in the last segment, Kim, I pointed out that Heather and Kim, HK, are the two finalist names. Isn't that weird?
Yeah.
It's fate.
Well, I mean, I go by Ryan on the show. But...
Right. So you're an event chef, though, and I hate talking about this because I'm starving, but your signature dish, seared scallops with mango jalapeno salsa and spicy toasted Rice Krispies. That's right?
Yes, I'm actually making that for 91 people right now today.
So I got to ask, how did that come about? Is that just kind of mixing a bunch of your favorite flavors? What did you do?
Yeah, that salsa is something I've been doing for a long time. I have a love for butter and fat and meat and everything that's bad for you. But I worked in a vegan place for a while. Sometimes you just got to take a job, and that mango salsa is something that I, created while I was at that job, and have always loved it and incorporated it into different dishes. I love scallops, and I know that I can cook them perfectly, so I know that, that's been an issue on Hell's Kitchen, that people can't do that, so I wanted to show Chef Ramsay that I could do that. The Rice Krispies is a funny story. I was making scallops in my house once. I had my daughter at the time. She's 3, and she's asleep, so I couldn't leave, and I really want some sort of crunchy texture to the dish because scallops, they don't really have that. So I, went into my pantry and I stole her cereal and I seasoned it up and it turned out really well.
See, that's one of the funny things, when I moved out of my parents' house and I had to start, cooking for myself, I think that's what was so fun about cooking, is that, I like this, let's put them together and see what happens.
Yes, and at the beginning of my career, sometimes you put stuff, you think things will go together, and they don't at all, so it's nice to be at a point where, I know, what's going to pair nicely with the other things, so.
So give me an example then. What was your biggest your kitchen failure of mixing 2 or 3 things together?
I can't really think of one, but
okay.
There's a cookbook I used to call that called the Flavor Bible, and it was actually my Bible for all of culinary school, and it just tells you, what pairs well with this or what pairs, not so well with that. But I did try to do citrus with a coffee crusted brisket once. And citrus and coffee, don't ever do that.
It's weird though, right? When you just think that, hey, let's just try this. This has to be good, and then no, just no.
It's all a learning experience.
Yeah. Well, I said that's what makes it fun. So let's talk about the competition. Hell's Kitchen's down to you and Heather, and you're battling it out to work for Chef Ramsay. So let's talk about Heather. If you were to describe her in the kitchen, let's say in one word, what would it be?
One word to describe her in the kitchen?
Yeah.
She's a bow. That's what I would call her. Not in a bad way. There are ballerinas and bows in the kitchen. That's how I describe it. You're either a ballerina or a bow. And she was a bow, She's just very straightforward, very loud, very, assertive in what she wants. And she did a good job at that. And I'm more of a ballerina.
Right. Now, we do see a lot of screaming and verbal brawling, let's say, on the show. Take us like a month or 2 after that. Do people still not like each other? Because at the end of the competition, though, I mean, the previous contestants come back, right, to help the 2 finalists, and sometimes, they just have to bite the bullet and put the past behind them and work for you.
Yeah, so that's, I don't think a lot of the other, top 10 contestants thought about that. That's why I tried to be nice to everybody, respect everybody, not screw anyone over, because if they were to, be on my team, who's going to, they might try to sabotage you. And, people like Paulie, if he had won, I don't think any of us would have helped him.
Yeah.
We probably would have all stood there and been like, you're on your own, bro. So, I mean, I tried to go about it in the most respectful way. There's just different personalities in the kitchen, and you have to figure out how to work with people, even if you don't like them.
So I have to ask, would you hire any of them outside of the show now?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I would definitely hire, even, I think Matt got a very bad rap. I mean, if he could just get his mouth and, attitude in check a little bit. He was very, very solid on the line. He was a really good line cook.
Yeah.
I don't understand why he had to fight back. I don't know if I would hire him necessarily for like a high-end restaurant, but if I needed someone to be, on the line, busting out the same thing every night, I would hire him. I would open a restaurant with Heidi. I truly thought that it would be her and I in the final two. And Heather, and that's basically it.
I'm going to put you on the spot here. If you can describe Chef Ramsay in one word, what would you use?
Well, he's wonderful.
Okay, all right. But, it's funny, I asked, in the last segment, I'd asked that as well. Is he intimidating? Were you nervous meeting him? Like, take us back there for a second. What was your first thought?
I had no idea what to expect. I watched the first couple seasons of the show, but I wasn't really caught up, so I didn't know. Like, Heather's like a huge fan, so she knew everything that was going to happen, and Chef Ramsay had never had any of my food, and I'm walking up to feed him and meet him for the first time, and I'm giving him Rice Krispies. Like, in that moment, I wanted to just be like, never mind, and walk away. Like, send myself home. I'm the stupidest person on earth, but I knew it was a good dish. I've eaten it a bunch of times. People love it. So it was very, very intimidating. But I've worked with chefs that, are just like that. And that's what I respond to the best. I don't like someone kissing my ass over or anything. Like, when someone like Chef Ramsay gives you a compliment, that he truly means it because he has such high standards.
Oh, for sure. What was the toughest challenge? Like, the one that I enjoy watching the most is the blind taste test, because we obviously see what you're eating, but you guys have no idea, and you could be way off. Is that one of the hardest ones, or what would be the hardest for you this season?
Yeah, I truly, even some of my first chefs and some of my chefs in culinary school just would always say what a good palate I had, so I was ready to go for that. I was blown away at how, first of all, I did terrible. But up until that point, I had not really screwed up any challenges. But you have this loud, like heavy metal music blasting in your ears.
Right.
And when you're lost driving, turning the music down, even though that doesn't really affect it at all. Like that, it took away all of our other senses. We were blindfolded. There was no texture. We couldn't see color. We had nothing. So they cut out a lot of that, for the bell peppers, and I said onions. I said, before that, I said, Chef, it tastes like fajitas. Is that a choice? Is it fajitas? Is it pureed fajitas? That was very hard for me, where Heather and I get to the final two. That was my other hardest challenge. I'm not great with public speaking still. That's why I'm in the kitchen. I like people, and I want them to be happy. I just don't want to be around them.
Right. No, why not?
And we had to, cook this dish tableside for all of LA's best chefs and talk while we were doing it. And we had a time frame. Like, we couldn't just say, okay, goodbye. Like, we had to fill that time and be, entertaining. And that honestly, I thought I was just going to just paint it.
So it almost seems like cooking is the easy part for you then.
Oh, yeah.
What advice would you give someone who maybe plans to try out for the show? Are there some, maybe even Ramsay do's and don'ts that they should know?
Just shut up and put your head down and do your job. Like, even if you didn't make the mistake or you think you did better than what he's saying, just say, yes, chef, and take it as, a lesson learned. He knows way more than you. Like, a couple times probably be like, do you want to try it? I think it's bad, but Chef Ramsay, you might think it's good. Like, just stop.
Yeah, no, and we're almost out of time, but I asked Heather in the last segment, I want to ask you, is there one piece of advice that Chef gave you that, you've kept and you still use today and has, changed the way you either look at an ingredient or a dish?
Yeah, he would kind of give us a slogan for each dinner service, and we would have to repeat it. It's easy, but I took it all to heart. And one of the things he said was cook with confidence, and that's something that I lack, and I've lacked my entire life. So I can cook, and I should, feel confident in that. So for him to say that and coming, away from the show and going back to work, and it's changed my life. Like, all I have to do is believe in myself, because everybody else does. So him saying cook with confidence and that you can do this, like, that was the biggest thing to me.
Well, we do see that Hell's Kitchen, it does change people's lives and their future. So, we wish you the best and congratulations with everything, Ryan, or Kim Ryan. Thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
And that's it. We are out of time. I will talk to you same time, same place next week here on the Scribble Podcast. It is Matt Eisman from Celebrity Apprentice joining me next week. Talk to you then. Bye-bye, everybody.
Want more Scribble? Check out thescribbleshow.com for past shows, celebrity interviews, cheapskate tips, and more. That's at thescribbleshow.com and on Twitter at The Scribble Show. The Scribble is a speak-free media presentation.
If you want some real heat,